Morning, dear students, and welcome to yet another session of English for class 10. And today we will be discussing the lesson A Long Walk to Freedom, which is a biography and which is also an excerpt, which means a small piece taken from the biography of Nelson Mandela. And if you remember, in the last class, that was yesterday's class, we discussed certain important points in the life of Nelson Mandela, and we also discussed his education, his political career, his contribution for the independence of South Africa. And today we will be discussing only the lesson. As I told you, it is a small piece of an excerpt taken from the biography of Nelson Mandela, which goes by the name A Long Walk to Freedom. You see, this particular lesson or this particular piece is nothing but a description of the inauguration ceremony which took place in the Union Buildings Amphitheatre, Pretoria. Pretoria is a city in South Africa. So an amphitheatre, it was a very big stadium, probably an old-age stadium, and the date was May 13 and the year was 1990 exactly. So in this particular inaugural speech, Dr. Nelson Mandela lays a certain emphasis or he focuses on certain important points. Definitely, he feels very happy and he also feels dignified to stand there as the President of South Africa. And at the very outset of his inaugural speech, he makes a very historical or a very important statement, and that is, never, never again will this beautiful land experience the oppression of one by another. I want you to focus on this particular statement because it is a very, very important statement, and as I've just said, a historic statement. Never, never again will this beautiful land experience the oppression of one by another. Now let's focus on this particular statement. Beautiful land. It's a very, very important phrase that he has used. Why does he call South Africa as the beautiful land? Obviously, South Africa has a lot of natural scenery and it also kind of has lots of diamond mines. So, geographically speaking, it was a very beautiful land. But here, he goes a step further. What he means by this beautiful land is South Africa is no longer under apartheid or under racial discrimination or under the dominant white rule anymore. So South Africa has become a free nation and the blacks have gained their voting rights and all are going to be treated equal, be it the white or be it the black population. Equal privileges, equal facilities for each and every citizen of South Africa. That is why he makes this statement and he mentions this particular phrase, that is a beautiful land. When a land becomes or when a country becomes independent from a foreign oppression, then obviously the land or the country gains its identity. South Africa got its international identity, and that is why he says or uses this phrase, a beautiful land, this beautiful land. Come to the next slide. Experience the oppression of one by another. The word oppression is also a very important one. It holds a lot of significance here. So he's talking about the long years of oppression, the oppression of the whites over the blacks. And as we had discussed in the last session, the black Africans were denied the voting rights. They were not allowed to mix with the whites. They couldn't sit equally in a bus or in a train with the whites. They couldn't sit and eat with the whites in a restaurant. There were separate restaurants for the whites. There were separate classes in the trains and buses. And even the services in the church were separated. They had different timings for the whites and different timings for the blacks. So this is exactly what he means by oppression. Now that oppression is no longer there because South Africa has become an independent nation. They have gained their voting rights. They are given the choice to choose their own leaders, to form their own governments, to write their own constitution. And that is what is meant by freedom from the oppression of one by another. So the oppression definitely refers to the oppression of the whites over the blacks. And South Africa has become a land of freedom. So this statement holds a lot of significance. It's a very important statement. When you read the lesson, you must pay attention to this. And the next point is the first paragraph. What does the first paragraph of the lesson along Walk to Freedom tell us? What is the gist of it? Well, I cannot be giving you a line-by-line explanation, but at least I can tell you the gist of it, or I'll give you the summary or the long and short of the matter, as we say. You see, the first paragraph talks about the inaugural ceremony. Nelson Mandela is there as the elected president. He stands in front of an international gathering and he says, South Africa witnessed the largest gathering in the world on that particular day because dignitaries from more than 140 countries witnessed this inaugural ceremony. And they were eagerly listening to every word of Dr. Nelson Mandela. So he feels proud to address the audience and he gives a brief description about the inaugural ceremony. And who was present with him? Zenani was present with him. And who is Zenani? Zenani was one of the daughters of Dr. Nelson Mandela. And Nelson Mandela takes pride in addressing the gathering with his daughter, and he also takes pride because South Africa caught the international attention. It became the center of attraction on that particular day because South Africa is going to be a new nation from now on. South Africa has attained the right to vote. The blacks and the whites had equal rights, an independent nation. So obviously Nelson Mandela had every reason to celebrate, and he also says, I am proud to see such a huge gathering, and I am also proud to welcome all the dignitaries who came from 140 countries. So he was having a pleasure and he took pride in welcoming them and addressing them. Now, in the next part, he describes the designations. What do you mean by designation? Designation is nothing but a political post. For example, in Jharkhand we have our own chief minister. So the designation, he has a designation. And what is the designation? The post of a chief minister. There are many other ministers to assist him in the cabinet. So each one is given a department or a portfolio. So what exactly is the word designation? What does it mean? It means a political post offered to a particular person. It may be the post of a president, it may be the post of a prime minister, it may be the rank of a cabinet minister, it may be the rank of a state minister. All these political offices, these offices are known as designations. Now here in this particular lesson, Nelson Mandela talks about the designations offered to different people. You see, Mr. de Klerk, that is F.W. de Klerk, became or he was chosen as the second deputy president. So in South Africa, the constitution is something different. You have the second deputy president, the first deputy president, and the president. So Mr. de Klerk became the second deputy president. He was sworn in. So you see, when the Prime Minister takes the oath of office, definitely he makes a promise. So here, this is a swearing-in ceremony. When the President chooses or appoints the Prime Minister takes an oath. In the same way, the ministers, the cabinet ministers and the state ministers, they also take an oath. That is known as a swearing-in ceremony or the oath-taking ceremony. So this was an oath-taking ceremony. So Mr. de Klerk, F.W. de Klerk, was taken to bring in independence or to make South Africa an independent nation. So obviously, he was a white personality but who fought relentlessly, continuously, without giving up for the independence of South Africa. So Mr. de Klerk was chosen or he was sworn in as the second deputy president. Then the first deputy president was Thabo Mbeki. He was a black African. So Thabo Mbeki was also a man, a very important man. How is he important? He is important because he also contributed for the freedom movement of South Africa. So Nelson Mandela and Thabo Mbeki were two key figures along with Dr. de Klerk, Mr. de Klerk, in gaining independence for South Africa. So Thabo Mbeki, a black personality, a black African, was chosen or sworn in as the first deputy president. Then obviously Nelson Mandela was chosen or sworn in as the president of South Africa on that particular day. You can see the date and the year mentioned there. And he makes another important statement. This is a key point. Out of a great human disaster, a new society is born. Look at these two words, human disaster and new society. What does it mean by human disaster? First, let us take this particular word. Leave out the word human, take the word disaster. What is disaster? Disaster is destruction. When there is a volcanic eruption, when there is an earthquake, when there is a flood, when there is an epidemic, there is destruction. And destruction can also be called as disaster. So, what does it mean by human disaster? Destruction of humanity. And what is the destruction of humanity that is talking about? The whites dominated the blacks. The blacks were denied all the rights. They lost or they did not enjoy the voting rights. They did not enjoy the privileges enjoyed by the whites. They were oppressed. They were subjugated. They were treated like slaves. They lost their human identity until Nelson Mandela became the president of South Africa. So this loss of human identity, the loss of equal rights, the loss of privileges is being meant as human disaster. Humanity was destroyed in South Africa. They were not considered, the blacks were not considered as human beings. They were considered worthless, worse than animals. So that is the human disaster that he's talking about. And this is a very important word. What does Mandela mean by the word human disaster? How is it related to the independent history or independent movement of South Africa? So on that particular day, when Dr. Nelson Mandela was sworn in as the president of South Africa, this human disaster disappeared from the face of the history of South Africa. And with the disappearance of human disaster, a new society is born. So what is the new society that he is talking about? It is nothing but the free and independent nation that took place or that took shape, that will be correct. The new society that took shape in South Africa is nothing but a society where the blacks and the whites enjoy equal rights, and most importantly, they got the right to vote. They got a chance or an opportunity to choose their own leaders. So the right for voting gave birth to a new society. So the differences, the racial discrimination between the whites and the blacks disappeared on that particular day. And another key word that he uses is political emancipation. This must be a bit difficult word for you, but emancipation means freedom. Emancipation, political emancipation, political freedom. So what does it mean by political freedom? Equal rights for both the whites and the blacks is known by the word emancipation. Slavery was done away with. slavery disappeared. Freedom was given to every citizen of South Africa. So all human beings in South Africa began to be treated as human beings with equal rights. There is no racial discrimination. So the political independence, which goes beyond racial discrimination, is known by political emancipation or political freedom. So let us continue with the lesson along walk to freedom. In the last session, if you remember, I told you how Nelson Mandela addressed the gathering, how he felt proud in welcoming the great gathering that was there to witness the political freedom of South Africa, the independence of South Africa. So, as I told you, Nelson Mandela was talking about, or he's describing the inaugural ceremony in the first paragraph of the lesson along walk to freedom. And he concludes that paragraph with a pledge. What do you mean by pledge? A promise, a resolution. So what was that pledge? What was that promise that he made to the people of South Africa? He promised to liberate people. This word liberate is very important. Make them free. And what did he make them? What did he promise to make them free from? He promised to liberate the people from poverty, being poor, being jobless, unable to fulfill their daily needs, absence of education, absence of employment opportunities, absence of fundamental rights, or absence of the facilities, the basic facilities, absence of the facilities which should be enjoyed by every human being, poverty, being poor. So he promised to liberate the people of South Africa from poverty, number one. Number two, deprivation. What is deprivation? Denying of certain facilities. If you don't have a proper job, you are deprived of a job. If you do not have the basic necessities like food, shelter and clothes, you are deprived of the fundamental needs, the basic needs. So, if you do not have something, if you don't have the right to enjoy certain facilities and privileges, you are deprived of them. So, he promises to liberate the people of South Africa from deprivation, which means he promises to give them all that they need to lead a comfortable life. Education, hygiene, jobs, everything, and suffering. He promises or he pledges to liberate them from suffering. What is the suffering that he is talking about? When you do not have the basic facilities to enjoy your life, then obviously you suffer. And when the whites were dominating the blacks suffered under their dominant rule. They lost the equality, they lost the privileges, they lost their identity, they lost their stability. So when they lose all these, obviously they suffer. So poverty brings suffering, poverty brings deprivation, and he promises to liberate the people from all these. And suffering also includes, you must remember, gender discrimination. South Africa was a suffering nation. It suffered under the burden of the white rule. The black Africans, they lost their kind of identity, their privileges. They lost the sense of being a human being in South Africa because they were not allowed to even think that they were human beings. Now that is going to come to an end. Discrimination, the difference between the black race and the white race. The whites considered themselves to be superior. They felt they were intelligent. They felt that they had the right to rule the blacks because they considered blacks as stupids. They considered them as inferior to them. So that system is going to be done away with. And there will no longer be any racial discrimination or difference between the whites and the black. So whites and the black, they became equal on this particular day when Nelson Mandela was elected as the president of South Africa. So he makes a promise at the very outset of his inaugural speech. This might be a very important question. remember the day and the date? It is given there in the book. What kind of pledge did he make and why? So these are the outline. These boys are the answers for the pledge that he makes. And then he announces a new dawn. What is the meaning of dawn? A new beginning. Dawn and dusk, these are two words that we often use. Dawn, the rising of the sun. Dusk, the setting of the sun. So with the rising of the sun, there is light everywhere. With the rising of the sun, there is brightness. With the rising of the sun, life begins on the earth. Here, life begins for the country of South Africa. How does life begin? It begins with freedom. Where the blacks and the whites began to be treated equally, where both of them got the right for voting, the right to vote, a new dawn, a new beginning begins, comes into the life of every South African, be it the white or the black. So, equality and brotherhood, these two words mean a lot for South Africans. It meant a lot on that day. So, everyone is going to be equal and there is no discrimination any longer, but the whites and the brothers and the blacks, the whites and the blacks would hold each other's hand and walk on the path of freedom. So it was equality, brotherhood that marked the independence of the history of South Africa. So in the inaugural speech, these are the important points made by Dr. Nelson Mandela, and he continues, and as he continues, he explains the sufferings, the trials, the tribulations, the challenges that he and his colleagues. So it was not a one-man's effort. The freedom of South Africa definitely was that the movement was being led by Nelson Mandela, but it was not only Nelson Mandela who worked for the independence or for the freedom of the blacks. There were many other people who went to prison with him. He mentions the names of all those people, his colleagues, his friends. So he continues to explain that. We will see that in the next class. Till then, go through the lesson and be in touch with the lesson. Take care and goodbye.